Imagine a dozen morbidly obese individuals, one by one, arriving and walking through the doors of a tennis club. It's no insult to Didsbury Tennis Club to say it's an unsophisticated place. No gleaming whitewashed walls, meticulously trimmed hedges, or the faintest whiff of exclusivity. If you were looking for the kind of club where members casually flaunt their affluence, you'll be disappointed. Didsbury was different. It was ordinary and unpretentious. Its website proudly declared it local, social and friendly, and that's precisely what it was. But on that particular morning, it wasn't tennis that had brought me and my colleagues there. The court sat empty, the club was eerily quiet for once. Instead, a dozen individuals who'd been categorised as morbidly obese were about to walk through the door. Their weight wasn't just an inconvenience, but a threat to their lives. And we, the so-called professionals, were meant to save them. We weren't the first to try. Each person in that group had spent years locked in a vicious cycle. Diets, calorie counting, weight loss, weight gain, gym memberships that began with hope and ended in guilt. They'd been through it all, counting sins, measuring portions, and trying every fad diet under the sun. And with every failure, they'd come to believe they were the problem. But the National Health Service had an idea, something different, and something that in principle couldn't fail. The idea was radical. Throw every possible intervention at the problem at once. Diet plans, fitness routines, medical interventions, all layered on top of one another in an intense 12-week blitz. I was one of that team of professionals, and we might be their last chance. At least, that's what we thought. Daniela, the dietitian, stood nearby, flipping through logbooks and recipes she'd prepared with clinical precision. Ian, the fitness instructor, adjusts his polo shirt, ready to jump into action with workout plans and calorie counting strategies. Elsie, the doctor, looked calm as ever, her stethoscope draped around her neck like a badge of authority. And then there was me. I wasn't a dietitian. I wasn't a doctor. I wasn't a fitness expert. I was the sideshow act, the so-called motivator, the missing piece of this elite squad of weight loss superheroes. That's what the rest of my colleagues must have believed that morning, but I knew differently. I had other ideas about what was needed. Like everyone, I stood around, stomach churning, waiting for the group to shuffle in. I felt like an imposter. The others probably expected me to bark out inspirational slogans like "You've got this" or "Dig deep," as if the sheer force of my enthusiasm could will these people into shredding the burdens they'd carried for years, both physical and emotional. I'd already decided that wouldn't happen because I'd done my research before that day. I felt like a traitor to the cause because I didn't think they needed motivation, recipe books, calorie counters, or carefully curated workout plans. If anything, those were the last things they needed because all of those things represent the problem. And as we'll learn in this book, the problem is the last place to look when you want a solution. They needed a fundamental shift in mindset that had nothing to do with the typical weight loss script. They didn't need a cheerleader. They needed a way to rewrite the story they'd been living in, the one where every diet failure confirmed their worst fears about themselves. I didn't know if I could give them that without clashing with my other professionals. But as the door creaked open and the first person stepped inside, I was about to find out. Even through the project, I saw my ideas working despite traditional weight loss practices pulling in the opposite direction. But that was then, and this is now. Now, I don't have to work within a traditional framework or treat weight loss as if it were different from any other challenging problem I've ever successfully worked with. Free of this diet dogma and understandable limitation placed upon me by the NHS, I set about writing this book and course. At first, quitting your diet sounds like a radical idea, but by the end of this book, I'll have convinced you otherwise. After freeing myself from the NHS project and its obligations, I developed a roadmap to quitting diets forever. I agreed with myself that if people were willing to put so much time, pain, and effort into the traditional weight loss strategies, then perhaps they were willing to dedicate 2 or 3 weeks to quitting diets forever. The road to freedom isn't a random chance event. It's paved with real, workable change tools that have worked for millions of people. The route to freedom is just 14 days from the end of this book for those willing to try something new. In the attached PDF, you'll see a diagram of a simple 3-stage process I conveniently called MAP. And at the end of it is what I call D-Day or Diet Day. This is the last day of your diet, calorie counting and meal planners. It will not be a food free for all, but instead it's designed to help you gain the support of your biggest ally and your biggest obstacle, your own mind. D-Day for us is Diet Day, the day we quit our diets forever and move on. It's day one of our transformation, and if you'll allow me to keep the analogy, after that it's all VE Day, which is of course victory and empowerment, because the change is embedded and permanent. So here's a breakdown of the MAP framework. M is for MAP. That's where you are now, at the point where you cannot know or unknow what you've learned and you have decided to chart your course beyond diet territory. We'll keep the analogy of the journey because it does make perfect sense. The MAP stage is about researching the territory ahead, gathering your resources, planning your route, and identifying the equipment you'll need. The next stage is A for align. We can't simply decide to explore beyond diet territory and simply walk out the door. We need to align all the elements for success. Just like planning a journey to a new destination, we need to check routes, work out the expected terrain, and ensure our passport and documents are valid and we have the money. Alignment in our case is about developing the skills you'll need, testing your equipment in controlled conditions, building mental resilience, and making those final preparations. This will be about practicing the tools you've gathered and prepared for the obstacles ahead. We have to ensure everything is perfectly aligned before we proceed. The final section is P. P for proceed. That means we're taking that momentous step across the boundary into new territory. This is when we start the engine and pull away, knowing things will never be the same again. People around us will need to readjust their perception of us. We will defy the labels they gave us and the labels that we gave ourselves. This is D-Day, and it's the day that everything changes. Every day we'll get better, stronger, and freer. We become experienced travellers, and we've overcome those obstacles we knew were coming. All the doubters will fold their arms and wait, but they'll continue waiting forever until they give up. In time, you'll look back at the old you and wonder how you ever got into that helpless mindset. People start to change their perception of you, and you do too. You no longer obsess until eventually someone mentions how well you're looking. Have you lost weight? You seem more upbeat. Then you'll know, because every day after that is what we call VE Day, or Victory and Empowerment Days. That's the map. Sounds straightforward enough. If you're willing, then I have all the tools and equipment you're going to need and the ability to train you in their use. And once you're proficient, then you'll agree a 14-day rollout for yourself and step out on your own. In the next chapter, I'll tell you more about the project that started it all and how it ultimately changed everything I knew about weight loss.